There are people in this world who never raise their voice, and yet every room they enter goes quiet. They don't chase. Things come to them. They don't argue. They don't need to. They don't beg for respect, and somehow, without force, without desperation, without performing, they win. You've met someone like this, maybe once. Maybe you're watching them right now from a distance, trying to reverse engineer what exactly they have that you don't. It's not looks, it's not money, it's not even confidence, not the loud kind anyway. It's something older. Something that was written down centuries ago, studied by kings, feared by enemies, and then quietly buried under everything modern society tells you to be instead. Be nice. Be humble. Don't make people uncomfortable. Wait your turn. And while you were following those rules, someone else wasn't. 7 things hiding in plain sight. Principles so precise, so psychologically true, that the moment they click, something in the way you see people, situations, and yourself will permanently shift. This isn't motivation. This isn't positivity. This is the part nobody teaches you. Don't skip any part of this video. Every single section builds on the last, and the one you almost skip will probably be the one you needed most. Number 1. People don't follow the strongest. They follow the most certain. Watch any room closely enough, and a pattern surfaces. It's rarely the smartest person who ends up leading. Often it's not even the most experienced one. What actually draws people, what makes them unconsciously defer, listen, follow, is the feeling of certainty that someone else projects. This is one of Machiavelli's most quietly devastating observations in The Prince. He noticed that people, when anxious or uncertain, don't search for truth, they search for resolution, someone to make the fog go away. And whoever can appear certain, even before they are certain, captures that psychological vacancy immediately. Think about how this plays out at work. 2 people are both equally qualified for a promotion. One presents their idea by saying, "I think this could potentially work, and maybe we should consider." The other walks in, lays out a plan, and speaks as if the outcome is already decided. Same idea, completely different response from the room. The second person didn't have more information, they had more composure. Machiavelli understood that leadership is partly a performance, not in the dishonest sense, but in the theatrical sense. The audience needs to feel that someone has already done the hard thinking, that the path is clear. And the moment you telegraph doubt, that vacancy you were filling suddenly opens back up. This isn't about faking confidence you don't have. That tends to collapse under pressure. What Machiavelli was pointing to was something more disciplined. Train yourself to make decisions, then commit to them visibly. Not loudly, visibly. There's a difference. Loud is trying to convince. Visible is simply not wavering. The Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, wrote something that aligns with this, in a quieter key. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Projected certainty, at its core, is the outward expression of that internal discipline. One practical implication: stop qualifying everything you say in public. Save the uncertainty for your private thinking, where it belongs. In the room, be resolved. People aren't following the person with all the answers. They're following the person who seems least rattled by not having them yet. Number 2. Perception is not shallow. It is the reality. Here's something most thoughtful people get wrong. They believe that perception is surface level. That what really matters is the substance underneath, the actual work, the real intentions, the truth of who you are. And they wait, sometimes for years, for the world to eventually figure that out on its own. Machiavelli would call that waiting a strategic mistake, not because substance doesn't matter. It does. But because in almost every social system, workplaces, friendships, organizations, relationships. People are making constant judgments with incomplete information. They don't have access to your internal world. They never will. What they have is what they observe, and they build their entire understanding of you from that. The psychologist Daniel Kahneman spent decades studying this. What he found may suggest something uncomfortable. People form impressions almost instantly, and then spend the rest of their interaction confirming what they already decided. First impressions aren't just powerful, they're structurally resistant to revision. Machiavelli understood this 5 centuries before the research existed. In The Prince, he observed that rulers who were perceived as strong, even when they weren't, maintained power longer than rulers who were strong but failed to communicate it. The perception was doing governing work that reality alone couldn't do. This plays out in offices constantly. Someone arrives early, dresses deliberately, speaks with measured pacing, and responds to emails within the hour. Someone else does twice the actual work, but arrives looking scattered, communicates in bursts, and seems perpetually overwhelmed. Over time, the room will quietly build a narrative around each of them. And that narrative will influence opportunities, trust, and advancement in ways that have nothing to do with the quality of the underlying work. That's not fair. Machiavelli never claimed it was. He just refused to pretend it wasn't happening. Managing perception isn't vanity. It's a form of communication. You are always sending signals. The only question is whether you're doing it intentionally or by accident. As the writer Ralph Waldo Emerson once put it, "Who you are speaks so loudly, I cannot hear what you say." The inverse is also true. How you appear will speak before you ever open your mouth. Decide what signal you're sending, then send it on purpose. Number 3. Neutrality is a position, and usually a weak one. Most people believe that staying neutral keeps them safe. Don't pick sides, don't commit, stay flexible, keep everyone happy. It feels like wisdom, like you're preserving options, avoiding enemies, staying above the mess. Machiavelli looked at this strategy and considered it one of the most reliably self-destructive moves a person in a position of influence could make. His argument in The Prince was clear and somewhat cold. When you refuse to declare where you stand, you don't protect yourself from both sides. You make yourself irrelevant to both sides. And when either side eventually wins, and one always does, neither of them feels any particular loyalty toward you. Why would they? You gave them nothing, and it cost you something. The ancient Chinese military strategist Sun Tzu observed something parallel. In the midst of chaos, there is also opportunity. The person who acts decisively during uncertainty doesn't just survive it, they often define what comes after it. The person who waits for the fog to clear finds that someone else has already made the map. This pattern appears in almost every workplace conflict. 2 factions develop, maybe around a strategic direction, or a leadership change, or a values disagreement. One group of people takes a position, another makes the opposite, and a third group tries to placate both, agreeing with whoever they're speaking to at any given moment. They have no enemies. They move freely between both camps. But watch what happens when the tension resolves. The people who took positions, even the ones who lost the argument, are now trusted by their side. They showed something. The people who stayed neutral showed nothing, except that they prioritize comfort over conviction. And trust, it turns out, requires the other person to have risked something for you. Now, this doesn't mean picking every battle or announcing opinions recklessly. Machiavelli was precise about when to commit. Timing matters enormously. But there's a difference between strategic patience and chronic non-commitment. One is a deliberate choice made in motion. The other is fear wearing the costume of flexibility. The moment you stop being the person who can be counted on to stand somewhere, you become the person who can be ignored everywhere. Number 4. Generosity without strategy is just expense. There's a version of generosity that builds power, and there's a version that quietly drains it. Most people can't tell the difference, and Machiavelli could. He observed something in the prince that sounds almost uncomfortable when said plainly. Leaders who give freely, constantly, and without structure tend to run out of the very resources that made them worth following. And then, when they're forced to pull back, raise taxes, cut resources, stop delivering, the goodwill they built evaporates faster than it accumulated. The people they gave to don't remember the generosity, they remember the moment it stopped. This isn't cynicism about human nature, it's closer to an accurate reading of how human psychology actually works. We adapt to what we receive. What once felt like a gift quickly becomes an expectation. And broken expectations generate more resentment than never having received anything at all. The behavioral economist Richard Thaler's research on loss aversion appears to confirm something in this direction. People feel the pain of losing something roughly twice as intensely as they feel the pleasure of gaining the same thing. So the person who gave you 10 things and then stopped giving feels emotionally worse than the person who never gave you anything. Machiavelli's prescription wasn't to stop being generous, it was to be generous deliberately, with timing, with intention, in ways that create genuine connection rather than dependency or expectation. Think about the manager who praises everyone constantly, for everything. After about 2 weeks, that praise means nothing. The same words that should carry weight become background noise because they've been distributed without any relationship to actual merit. Now compare that to the manager who is precise with recognition, who notices specifically what you did well, and says so once, at the right moment. That lands differently. It lands because it cost something, because it was selective. The ancient Stoic philosopher Epictetus understood the internal version of this. Seek not the good in external things, seek it in yourself. Real influence doesn't come from what you give away. It comes from what you've built internally: judgment, discernment, the capacity to know when something matters enough to act on it. Undirected generosity is often less about the other person and more about managing your own anxiety around being liked. Machiavelli saw through that immediately. Give, but give like it means something. Because the moment it stops meaning something, you've lost the very thing you were trying to build. Number 5. Your reputation is a structure. Treat it like one. Most people think about reputation the way they think about weather, something that happens to them, something formed by outside forces, out of their hands, impossible to fully control. Machiavelli thought about it like architecture, something built, something that requires maintenance. Something that, if neglected long enough, doesn't just deteriorate, it gets replaced by whatever narrative other people find most convenient to believe. This is one of the subtler arguments woven through The Prince. He wasn't just talking about kings managing public image, he was pointing at something universal. In any social structure, people will form a story about you, whether you participate in that process or not. The question is whether you are the primary author of that story, or whether you've abdicated that role to everyone else's assumptions and projections. Reputation operates on a logic that feels unfair until you understand it. It builds slowly. It can collapse quickly. And it almost never reflects a complete picture. It reflects the most memorable and repeatable version of you. The story that travels easily. The one people tell when you're not in the room. The philosopher William James once wrote, "The greatest revolution of our generation is the discovery that human beings, by changing the inner attitudes of their minds, can change the outer aspects of their lives." Applied here, the shift isn't in performing differently for an audience. It's in deciding, deliberately, what you actually want to be known for, and then building behavior that makes that the most obvious conclusion. Consider what happens when someone makes one highly visible mistake in a workplace. If they have a deep reservoir of trust and consistency built before that moment, the mistake gets contextualized. That's not like him. But if the person has been vague, neither especially impressive nor especially problematic. The mistake doesn't get contextualized, it becomes definitional. It fills the vacuum where a clearer reputation would have been. Machiavelli's insight here was tactical but profound. Invest in your reputation during the periods when nothing seems to be at stake, because those quiet, ordinary moments are precisely when it's being formed. Don't wait for a crisis to decide what you stand for. By then, someone else has already decided for you. And that version of you, the one built entirely from other people's incomplete observations, is the one that opens or closes doors before you even walk into the room. Number 6. The most powerful thing in any room is often the person who wants the least. There's a dynamic that plays out in negotiations, conversations, relationships, and politics, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. The person with the most visible need is almost always the person with the least leverage. Machiavelli observed this not as a moral judgment, but as a structural reality. In The Prince, he wrote extensively about the dangers of dependence, how a leader who needs the approval of others to function has already surrendered a critical degree of control. Because whoever holds what you need, holds you. This cuts deeper than negotiation tactics. It's a psychological orientation. Think about what happens when someone goes into a job interview desperate for the role. The desperation leaks through over-preparation that tips into anxiety, through answers that are too eager to please, through a subtle loss of the natural friction that actually makes someone interesting to talk to. The interviewer senses it without being able to name it, and something shifts. The dynamic that should feel like two parties evaluating each other begins to feel lopsided. Now put someone in the same chair who genuinely has other options, or who has simply trained themselves to feel as if they do. Same qualifications, different internal posture. The conversation moves differently. Questions get answered with more ease. There's a quality of quiet self-containment that reads, almost involuntarily, as confidence. The Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius, who was, notably, an actual emperor navigating actual power, wrote in his Meditations, "Never esteem anything as of advantage to you that will make you break your word or lose your self-respect." That self-respect, practically speaking, requires not placing your stability entirely in the hands of any external outcome. This is harder than it sounds. Human beings are wired to want approval, security, connection, advancement. Machiavelli wasn't suggesting you hollow yourself out and want nothing. He was pointing at something more precise. Visible need changes how others treat you. And you have more control over what you reveal about your needs than most people ever exercise. In practice, this might mean walking into a difficult conversation having already resolved, internally, that you can handle the worst outcome. Not because you don't care, but because your stability can't hinge on the other person's response. The moment it does, they feel it, and consciously or not, they use it. Detachment isn't coldness. It's composure with roots deep enough that external pressure doesn't move the trunk. The people who seem magnetic, effortlessly respected, somehow always getting better outcomes, they're often not smarter or more talented. They've just stopped telegraphing what they can't afford to lose. That restraint, quiet and invisible, may be the single most underestimated form of power in any room. Number 7. Timing is not patience. It's a skill. Most people confuse waiting with strategy. They hold back, delay, avoid, and call it patience. But Machiavelli drew a sharp line between the two. Real strategic timing isn't passive. It's intensely active. It requires reading conditions, tracking momentum, and knowing, with some precision, when a situation has ripened enough to act in. In The Prince, Machiavelli used the concept of fortuna, roughly translated as fortune or circumstance, to argue that conditions are always shifting. The world doesn't hold still long enough for perfect preparation. What it offers are windows. Moments when the alignment of people, context, and readiness make a particular action possible in a way it wasn't before and won't be again soon. Miss the window, and the same move that would have worked becomes impossible, not because you changed, but because the circumstances around you did. The ancient Greek philosopher Heraclitus captured the underlying physics of this. You cannot step into the same river twice. Every moment of inaction is also a choice, because the river keeps moving, whether you step in or not. This shows up in careers in a specific way. There are moments, brief, sometimes barely visible, when someone is being considered for something, when a decision-maker's opinion is still fluid, when a question is still open. The person who moves during that window, who puts themselves into that open conversation before it closes, changes the outcome. The person who waits for certainty, for the perfect moment when all conditions feel settled, often finds the conversation has already happened without them. Machiavelli was careful here. He wasn't advocating recklessness, acting before you're ready, in conditions that don't support the move. That's not timing, that's impatience wearing a strategic costume. What he was pointing at was something more disciplined, preparation held in readiness, so that when the window opens, hesitation doesn't cost you the opening. There's also a social dimension to this. Saying something at the wrong moment, even something completely true and well-reasoned, can land badly simply because the room wasn't ready for it. The same words, offered 3 weeks later after a shift in context, can feel obvious and right. Timing doesn't just determine whether something works, it often determines whether it's even heard. The person who masters this isn't someone who acts fast, they're someone who acts at the right speed for the conditions in front of them. Sometimes that's immediately, sometimes it's after a long, deliberate wait. The difference is in reading what the moment actually calls for, not what your anxiety or eagerness or fear is pushing you toward. Fortune rewards the prepared mind that knows how to wait and, just as importantly, knows when to stop waiting. Conclusion. Here's what Machiavelli actually was: not a villain, not an instruction manual for cruelty. A man who looked at the world with uncomfortable honesty and refused to describe it as he wished it were. What we covered today isn't about manipulation, it's about clarity, how perception moves faster than substance, what visible need does to your leverage, why reputation forms in the quiet moments nobody thinks are being watched, and why timing is a skill, not an accident. None of this requires harming anyone. It requires something harder: self-awareness. Now here's what I want from you. Go to the comments and write one sentence, your personal definition of power. Not something you read somewhere, your own words. What does power actually mean to you, in your life, right now? Then drop the quote you personally live by, the one that actually moves you. What happens in that section will be worth reading, because when different minds answer the same question, you see both how differently people think and how similar the hunger underneath really is. Dominate that space. Not by being loud, but by being real. If this video shifted something in your thinking, like it, share it with someone who needs it, and subscribe for more. The comments section is yours. Use it deliberately.